Centering conflict, well, the whole concept of centering is what my life's been about. As we let go of the myth that conflict is negative, we start to see much bigger opportunities and possibilities.
This whole process of learning and conflict resolution has been a great friend to me.
At work, and even at home, there's a lot of things that come at you. So it's important for me to stay focused and concentrate on listening to people and listening to my kids.
Hello, I'm Buzz Luttrell. Welcome to FYI Video, keeping your cool when others don't. In this program, we're going to explore a new perspective on managing conflict, one that does not see it as a contest or battle, but as a part of life that just is. You're going to learn how and why staying cool, calm, and collected during the heat of conflict can become both a natural advantage and a learning opportunity. You're going to discover some exciting new strategies for managing conflict that will help you reduce the stress in your life and lead to healthier professional and personal relationships. You'll see these strategies in action and meet their originator, internationally known author, conflict resolution consultant, and Aikido expert Thomas Crum, who uses this martial art as a metaphor to help individuals and organizations throughout the world understand his approach to handling conflict. Based on the mind-body act of centering, which we'll define and demonstrate later, Aikido literally means a way of blending energies in order to transform an attack into a personal strength, or as applied to conflict management, a conflict into an opportunity without harming the aggressor. President of AikiWorks in Aspen, Colorado, Tom is the author of the highly acclaimed book, The Magic of Conflict, which explores in depth the concepts and skills we will present today. So let's start with our expert. Tom, how do you see conflict?
Conflict is not a contest. It just is. What it is it's nature's primary motivator for change. That's why we need to be willing to change. Nature's way of growing and developing is through change. I mean, oysters do it that way. A little piece of sand gets in the oyster, and the oyster doesn't run into one part of the shell and pretend that the irritant isn't there. Nor does it hire a litigation team and spend millions of dollars trying to get rid of that little piece of sand. Instead, it somehow embraces it in a way in which a pearl is formed, something of value. That is available to us if we had the courage and the foresight to see it as it truly is. It is a great opportunity to grow.
How can we apply nature's lessons to our lives?
Most people don't realize that their work is about dealing with conflict. Most people consider, if I didn't have these conflicts, then I'd be really happy at work. When the fact is that most people, if they look at their job, it is to help resolve conflicts and to create more powerful relationships. And the opportunity to give a gift of center to yourself and to others is very real and very important.
What exactly do you mean by center?
Centering is an age-old notion. It's been around as long as humans. The need to be centered, the need to have an integrated state of mind, body, and spirit so we can have clarity and focus purposefully and powerfully in the world. All great leaders have a strong, powerful center. I think that historically you can find it in every culture, whether you call it the Hara in Japan or the Dantian in China, the Kundalini in India, a clear vision and purpose maybe in the Western world. It's there. Centering is not some new, fluffy, new age term. It's very real.
Thank you, Tom. Now, let's see just how real centering is, as Tom helps some trainees find their center, a condition which Tom calls a heightened state of emotional and physical stability that provides clarity of thought and the ability to act effectively even in the most stressful times, a state which can be verified physically.
And I am going to, with her permission, just lightly touch here. And I'm going to lightly increase the pressure. You just stand there, and you will notice a simple scientific observation. Betty wobbles, right? It's no big deal. I touch here. Where do you think her mind goes when I touch here? here.
Then Tom asks Betty to refocus her attention and energy to her physical center and applies the same amount of pressure to her chest as before.
I'm pressing, increasing the pressure now a little bit more, and just relax. Yeah, this is excellent. Capture this. How's it feel right now? Different?
Another convincing demonstration of the power of centering is the two-man lift, where two brawny volunteers easily lift Tom, even while he kicks, until he gets centered.
I can get centered. You feel? That's amazing. Feel the difference?
In a minute, you'll see how this power of centering translates to work and home life. But first, let's take a look at our guidelines for managing conflict. The first and most basic step is to center yourself. Recall something in your life that makes you feel solid and whole. Capture the feeling by focusing it on your physical center, integrating it with your mind and body. Really experience the feeling and how it differs from being off-center. Next, you are ready to acknowledge opposing views. Let go of your defenses and empathize with the other side. Then, embrace the conflict. Take responsibility for your own involvement in it and work with the other side to discover mutual interests, needs, and goals.
So now we start working together. That's where solutions come from, the discovering attitude, not the who's right attitude.
Throughout the process, be flexible as you seek solutions. Explore options and open yourself to creative thinking and the willingness to change your behavior. Then, based on what you've learned, take action.
That proposal was loud.
Well, let's go out for coffee.
And remember your sense of humor. Now, let's watch these guidelines as they're applied to daily work and home life situations with members of the Boston region's McDonald's Corporation. As the leading quick service restaurant in the world, McDonald's goal is to achieve 100% customer satisfaction with both their internal customers, their staff, restaurant owner-operators, joint venture partners, crew and suppliers, and their external customers, the millions of people who enjoy McDonald's day in and day out. To help achieve this goal, McDonald's Boston Regional Manager, Gail Hammock, decided to train her management team in Tom's approach to managing conflict.
Things that you've been doing in the region.
Certainly I have financial responsibilities that I look at, but most of what I do is helping people. Much of the situations that I do interact with have to do with a conflict. Someone's having a conflict with someone else, or someone's having a conflict with a decision that we've made as the company. So it's a routine of our life at McDonald's. Not bad, not good, it just is.
Gail and her dedicated management team put a lot of energy into applying their new insights to the unique complexities of franchise relationships. Owner-operators Bob Hogan and Paula Wright applaud the positive changes Tom's training has inspired.
It's like a whole new world. It really is. It's what do we need, what do we want, and then communicating to us, here's how we can be partners in reaching our goals.
You know, Paula, I couldn't agree with you more. It's a win-win situation for us, the operators, but also, I'm sure it's an easier job for the corporate personnel.
Absolutely, and they're measuring.
We're trying to approach each other recognizing that we have differences, and that it doesn't necessarily mean that we have to be in conflict. It means that we might have to acknowledge, find out more about the differences, but that's good, that works, and then it gives us a chance to work through the differences, maybe even realize we don't have them at all.
A common vocabulary and a good sense of humor help everyone keep centered.
So I thought of taking a different approach.
We have even some buzzwords, like center yourself, you know, or what was the other one I used with Mono? Find that belly button.
I usually take a nice slow breath with myself, and I even think about the belly button. I think that's a good piece of vocabulary we have around here right now is belly button or be centered.
Karen, Gail, and marketing manager Monty Yarnell all rely on getting centered to help them handle the pressures of what Mana calls a frontline business.
What centering does is simply allow you to control what I'll say my metabolic reflexes under that type of situation, clearly allow myself to listen to what someone's saying, not be so preoccupied with what I'm going to respond with.
I definitely center myself before a potential meeting that might not be a topic that is going to be an easy one. If I don't get across all my facts that I need to in relation to what the outcome needs to be in the meeting. And when someone else loses their control, they don't have an advantage, and you end up getting a natural advantage just by being centered.
Simply control that allows yourself to hear better, think with greater clarity, and then I think respond with a more appropriate response because it grows out of a discussion instead of a contest.
The team realized that while gaining self-control, they also had to relinquish control of others in order to grow.
At times, it's important to fight for your opinion, to stand, stoic about the whole thing. But I found that a lot more happens for me either personally inside or within the team that I work with if I'm willing to be flexible. Because it gets back to, as a new regional manager, I've done a lot of growing in this year. And one of the most important parts of growth is recognizing that without my team and believing that they usually know a lot more about something than I do, I could be very rigid. And it would be very easy with my position power to command that people go and do things, and they would do it for a little while.
Knowing that conflict is inevitable in the workplace, Gail is convinced that the best way to deal with it is openly and honestly, acknowledging that it exists and then moving on to embrace it.
If I already accept it and acknowledge that there is a difference, then to embrace it means I have to bring it inside. I have to maybe tool around with it a little bit, ask myself the right questions about it, and begin to internalize a bit so that I can maybe feel what the other person is feeling, or even feel myself if it's my internal conflict.
And then, mutually satisfying solutions begin to emerge.
If you're going to satisfy 100% of your customers, then you really need to understand what their issues are. Not think you understand. Understand what they're saying, be able to be objective on it, and to just talk through any issues, resolve them, set a plan of action, set a goal, set a vision.
And if you can remove the controversial issues and get to a plane where you can let your guard down and solve goals and objectives and problems without fear or retribution, it ends up in a win-win situation for an operator, franchisee, and for the regional management team.
I think it's a great tool to build on the relationship and therefore build on customer satisfaction.
The bottom line to me really is there is trust there, and I feel like there's a partnership.
This whole process of learning and conflict resolution has been a great friend to me.
Gail and her team have clearly put our guidelines to work. Let's see what Tom Crum thinks. Tom, what did you see?
So I think that what I saw in that segment is this is not only good work, it is part of my job. I should learn it and I should work with it, and when I do, it's more joyful.
What about centering? How did it help them?
Being able to be centered allows you to be connected and aware of the other person. Therefore, you're able to acknowledge them, acknowledge the conflict, acknowledge the feedback they're giving you, and to do it in a very sincere way, in a strong, powerful way, where you're not wearing all of the maybe emotional baggage that's being thrown at you if it's a hot issue, but instead you're looking beyond that to what's really needed and what's really wanted. Most of us say, oh, our conflicts will be handled if the other side would change. The fact is, we need to embrace the conflict and take responsibility, and we need to be willing to change.
Thanks, Tom. Now that you have an idea of how our guidelines can be used to resolve conflict, here are some tips to help you put them to work. Listen before speaking so you can get the whole story. And don't interrupt. Being interrupted is very irritating. Use I feel statements instead of you make me feel to express your needs without creating defensiveness. Use help me understand phrases to empathize and discover the true nature of the problem. State your needs calmly and quietly, making a request rather than a demand. And take a deep breath whenever you need to regain your composure. Put these tips to use. They'll only work if you practice them. Now, let's watch an example that shows why recent surveys indicate that the ability to deal with conflict well is one of the main contributors to a successful marriage. We're going to take a personal look at an affable and conscientious member of Gail's team whose recently expanded role is reflected in his new title of Service Enhancement Coach, Perry Zine.
Involved in the selection process and give the information to a selection team.
We're going to learn how this hard-working, professional, and dedicated family man is using his new approach to managing conflict to help him become more effective in his work life and his ever more challenging role as husband and father of 3.
Well, I think the important thing is trying to balance your business life and your personal life, and there's a transition zone that you have to deal with. You're totally focused in business, and then you come home and now you have to shift. When you have a 12-year-old, a 9-year-old, and a 3-year-old, there's different challenges there. So I have to be creative. I just have to really focus on listening to each one and being centered and using connective listening is very important. I'm a very early riser, so in the morning I get up nice and early and do my energizer, and I meditate for a half hour because there's a lot of energy in my job that expanded, and I have to save some for everyone. And it's really helped for reserve for my family.
An avid basketball player, Perry naturally gravitates to the hoop to get centered, focused, and relaxed.
I start off with a routine warm-up, and then I just start to shoot foul shots. And just start to look at the basket itself and the bottom of the net. And I have that picture of the ball just going right through. Even in business, I look at that basket and the net, and it just gets me really focused.
When you're at the foul line and you have thousands of screaming fans, saying miss, miss, and you have to totally stay focused on that basketball rim. That helped me prior in the style I use now to look at a vision and make decisions appropriately.
Whether Perry needs a basketball break or a walk in the woods to regain his center, his wife Linda knows the importance of these moments to her husband and family and fully supports his taking them.
And of course, in any marriage, there's conflict, especially when you have 3 children. It's helped us to manage our conflict, to discuss it and deal with it versus pushing it aside and not wanting to get involved with it and then having it build up.
I used to just absorb it. Now I embrace it and react to it in a positive manner.
Linda and Perry realize they can't be perfect, but try to avoid knee-jerk reactions or any of the button pushers that will surely get in the way of family harmony and mutually viable solutions.
We're building a house right now, and I think a lot of decisions have to be agreed upon mutually. Linda has certain tastes and I have certain tastes, so we are able to meet halfway, and I think that is part of my responsibility to make happen.
All done? You want to go on Skywriter?
To respond appropriately, you have to listen very carefully and get all the information from the other person. You have to add flexibility also to the process. So you have to listen and respond to what they're saying and then act on it effectively.
The whole family has benefited and learned from Perry's new insights and behavior. They often get centered with him and feel the results.
It makes us so we're not so, mean.
Yeah.
So we don't have a bad day or a bad night.
Stress.
He puts his whole body and soul, and so to speak, into it. And I think that that's a lot easier on him physically and mentally and emotionally than being spread out all over. Staying centered and staying, it helps his relationships with his children and, of course, with me. That's how you manage conflict, and I think it works.
It certainly seems to be working for the Zines. What do you think makes it work, Tom?
I think it's basically Perry's courage and willingness to take what he is learning and working on and share it with everyone around him. In other words, to create a real support team.
What do you think he's learned from your approach?
I sense that Perry, you know, he's a very competitive athlete, and he probably saw conflict as contest, and he didn't want to take on that fight approach. So basically, maybe he was taking on more of a flee approach, which often happens. In other words, avoid conflict. My sense of the segment was that there was a real shift and a happiness for that shift on the part of the other family members to communicate, to be very sensitive and have the courage to share your feelings, knowing that you don't have to bludgeon people with your feelings. You can feel your feelings, but you can operate out of your purpose. His purpose is to provide a loving, nurturing, communicating atmosphere.
But that doesn't mean they never argue anymore, that everything's just perfect.
That's not the way any family life exists 24 hours a day. The point is that when you have tough times, you recognize that that's part of it. That's not there's something wrong with you. That's not there's something wrong with who you are or your relationship. Instead, there are opportunities to grow.
Okay, Tom, and thank you very much for being with us. Since staying centered is at the root of our approach, here's a simple plan of action to help you do just that. Find routine opportunities to check your center, whether walking through the office, sitting at your desk, doing the dishes, or driving home from work. And since nobody is centered all the time, be sure to take a moment to regain your center when you feel the need. Sit quietly for a minute or two, maybe first thing in the morning, or when you arrive at work, or come home in the evening. Find the time and place that works best for you. And finally, notice the daily events that push you off center or shut you down. Develop anchors to help you stay centered, such as terms you use with your family or colleagues, like remember to breathe, or check your belly button, or simple activities like taking a stretch or a deep, replenishing breath. We all have the ability to handle conflict as well as Gail and her team and Perry and his, as a tool of discovery instead of destruction. This centered approach will allow us to find peaceful and mutually viable solutions to problems and respond appropriately to the interpersonal challenges we face at home and at work. As Tom quotes from an old Chinese proverb, unless we change our direction, we are likely to end up where we're headed. Or in Tom's own words, it's up to us to turn a life of work into a work of art. I'm Buzz Luttrell for the American Management Association.